You're now working with the Trump administration and Treasury. You're working with Secretary Mnuchin right now, right?
Yes.
And it's on economic policy.
Right.
You have a span across Republican politics, I would suggest, as no one truly does. There's some that did it then, there's some that did it along the way, and there's some that are doing it now. But I would argue in Washington, nobody's spanned it like you. What's the difference between Treasury, financial, and the process of Republican politics and administration now versus under President Bush?
Well, I started off with President Reagan in the Council of Economic Advisors, yes. And it's been a great privilege to work under 4 administrations. President Reagan, President George H.W. Bush, President George W. Bush, and now President Trump. And we're here to talk about President George H.W. Bush.
Right.
And he was a very kind man, as many people have said, and he did his best to cut the deficit and keep the economy going. And what was really interesting is that in 1992, what we were saying is that the economy was growing. But the National Bureau of Economic Research didn't mark the end of the recession being in March 1991, until December 1992. So in December 1992, when President Bush said the economy had been growing all year, turned out he was right. It had been growing above 4%. But it was
Marty Feldstein's fault, right?
Well, I'm not blaming any names.
Okay, we'll blame Marty Feldstein. What is so important here, and this is great, and I say this with great spirit for the humor of the former president, we need a definition of voodoo economics, and you're the only one on the planet that can really, I mean, Jim Baker can do it and others can do it, but Diana Furchtgott-Roth, what is voodoo economics, just once and for all?
Well, I don't know what voodoo economics is, but right now we have cut taxes and the economy is growing very strongly. We had great GDP numbers last month. The economy is growing above 3% right now.
I'll take your point.
There's
a little debate about the vector there, but this is important, and this goes back to something that Michael McKee said to me yesterday. And again, folks, Mike McKee will join me on radio here on Bloomberg Surveillance through the morning. I'm thrilled with that. And what's so interesting here is the lessons we learned about cutting taxes to spur growth and maintain fiscal integrity. That was something important to President Bush, important to President Reagan. There was an experiment then, and under President Trump's leadership, there's an experiment now. How's the experiment going? Can we really grow our way out of a fiscal challenge?
The difference between 2016 and the economy now in 2017 and 2018 is remarkable.
Agreed.
People thought that the economy could not grow at higher than 2%, and it's on track to grow at higher than 3% this year. Business investment soared, consumer confidence, business confidence are up. Business investment increasing.
Okay, I'll take your point, Diana, but what is so important here is to understand that idea of a twin deficit. My chart of the year is that linkage of trade deficit, something dear to President Trump, and also the linkage of our fiscal deficit. And the vector of that is getting back to the time of when you were very young, of Reagan and Bush Sr. Do we have a risk here of twin deficits into 2020 or, frankly, beyond?
It's up to Congress to put in place proposals to cut spending, to cut the spending, and President Trump proposed cutting spending. President George H.W. Bush proposed cutting spending, and it's up to Congress to follow and make those spending cuts that presidents propose. Presidents propose, but Congress has to, Congress is responsible for how much is spent.